I'll take you back to Parliament, where the vetting for the Supreme Court judges is still ongoing.
Is any judge sitting in any jurisdiction lower the hierarchy who decides, or for any reason, his or her attention is not brought to the position of the Supreme Court with respect to the ownership of a parcel, that judgment will certainly not stand the test of time. So I think that once the Supreme Court has made a definitive pronouncement relative to ownership either by a stool or a family, it settles it. The problem is whether the legal practitioner who is commencing an action would have known the position of the Supreme Court relative to the settlement of ownership of that parcel. But it will take time. The system will cleanse itself. So for areas that have still not been determined, over a period of time, I think the Supreme Court will be able to settle that question, because there are very many areas in Accra which have not been settled with respect to which family or which stool has the allodial ownership of those lands.
Yes, Nilanti Vanda.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And let me take the opportunity to congratulate the nominee for this enviable position. My Lord, first I want to take you back to the issue of conflict and, let me say, interpretation of certain spiritual issues pertaining to your religion. Coming from the Zongo, this question is very important to a lot of my women within those areas. But I want to start with an analogy. I'm a Muslim. I have two wives. One a Muslim, the other not. I die intestate. My Muslim wife will want your inheritance to be settled by the Quranic instruction. My Christian wife will want to insist that we look at the intestate succession law. In a situation like this, what will be, one, your objective assessment of the issue before you, and your conclusion in this? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, once again, this question has arisen over the years. Now, Islam is a religion that embodies everything. The culture and way of life of the Muslim is prescribed by the religion itself. But Islamic law is not the law of this country. The law of this country are laws created by this House and decrees of military regimes that have been accepted as law. So that is the municipal law. Now, where there is this conflict between Islamic law and the municipal law, certainly the municipal law will prevail, because the Islamic law is not one of universal application. For the man who has decided to keep a Muslim wife on the one hand and a Christian wife on the other, will ordinarily be expected to have known that in the event of his death, Islamic law will not prevail. We are even having difficulties with situations where the 2 or 3 wives are Muslims, let alone a situation where they are diametrically different in terms of religion. So my simple answer is that PNDC Law 111, which regulates the property of the intestate, will not apply universally. What will happen is that where the widows are Muslim and all other beneficiaries are Muslim, and they are interested in the application of Islamic law, then there has to be unanimity. Because Islamic law, by the manner of distribution of estates, discriminates against women, because the ratio is 2-to-1. If all the beneficiaries agree that they want Islamic law to prevail, then of course what they have to do is to appoint the appropriate number of themselves to apply to the court for letters of administration. Then they seek advice from our Muslim clerics to advise them on how to deal with the distribution in accordance with Islamic law. At that stage, they will then be deemed to have exercised an election to abandon their rights under the statutes, and will then prescribe to rights under Islamic law, which they think should regulate the distribution of the estate. But Islamic law cannot be imposed even on the Muslim who, because of material things, decides that I do not want it to apply. I want to assert my right under the municipal law. Mr. Chairman, that is my answer.
Well, thank you very much. My next question will take you to one of your comfort zones. And I thank God that at this time, we have the Lord Chief Justice himself here, and I've also seen Justice Mafusian also behind you. The three of you very favorite people as far as football is concerned in this country. I have not said the House of Folk. You are saying it. My Lord, are you a House of Folk supporter? Chairman is saying it. No, it's Chairman who is saying it.
I was Kumasi at Santikota.
Okay. Now to my question.
My Lord, well, if you're minded to answer that question, that's fine. But if I wish to ask you, I'll speak into the mic. Otherwise, please ignore his aside.
Very well,
Okay. You served as the chairman of the Disciplinary Dispute and Grievance Resolution Committee set up to investigate matters in relation to the Ghana Olympic Committee, Australian visa. What did you find, and who were the key actors in that scandal?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I was chairman of a 5-man committee. Incidentally, it includes a member of this House, but he was not one of us when we dealt with that issue. So we sat as a committee of 3, myself and 2 distinguished personalities who by themselves have held very respectable positions in this country. As a subcommittee of the executive committee, we had very limited jurisdiction. First of all, we couldn't subpoena persons we suspected who were not members of the Olympic community. Because if the person did not belong to the Olympic community, you subpoena him or you invite him, he may have an election. He may decide not to come. So, at the end of the day, we found some members of the Ghana Olympic Committee to have acted inappropriately, and we recommended the necessary sanctions. But you see, the GOC has a funny structure. Whereas we are independent and we are not amenable to the control of an executive committee, they have a provision in their statutes where recommendations for disciplinary action are supposed to be voted upon and endorsed by the GOC at Congress. So all the persons we found to have one way or the other misconducted themselves, not directly related to those who embarrassed the country in Australia, but they appeared to have conducted themselves in a manner that the system put in place had been compromised. Congress decided not to accept our recommendation for sanctions, and that was the end of the matter. As for our compatriots who were directly involved in the visa scandal, we requested the executive board to seek the cooperation of the Ghana immigration for us to have their names so as to explore the possibility of listening to their side of the story. The report we had was that Ghana immigration was not willing to cooperate. So that is the end of the matter. But we did make recommendations for reform, because one of the things we found was that visa racketeering and corruption was endemic in all the sporting organizations, particularly when it comes to international travel. So we made sufficient recommendations to Congress. And I think, as a person interested in sports, the report having been discussed at Congress, you can seek to have a copy so as to guide you in your deliberations as an honorable member of Parliament. I will recommend that to you. Yes.
Thank you very much. Your recommendation is well noted. But still, in that area, your work with the Ghana Football Association was also noted, to the extent that you were even given an award. You were ex-chairman of the Legal and Disciplinary Committee. Corruption in football for some time now has become a problem, from FIFA to UEFA, and in Ghana, our own number 12. We've had a situation where, after the Jamefe Commission, the case has been lingering within the confines of the courts for years. And I remember the Lord Chief Justice assured me, now that we have the Lord Chief Justice there, Justice Mafusian there, yourself joining, what assurances will you give this House and the country as a whole that with your interest in football, you will make sure that this case is dispensed with, so that people are dealt with, so that it will serve as a deterrent for people who think that football is one of the avenues to make money and to enrich themselves at the expense of the nation and the people who are involved in the game. Thank you.
I hope you're not asking the judges to be football biased.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I'm made to understand with respect to the implementation of the report of Justice Jamefe Commission that an appeal was filed from that decision and an application for some form of stay had been granted. I'm not privy to the facts, but if the honorable member can make available any of the processes filed, I will prompt His Lordship the Chief Justice with a view to identifying where exactly the processes are. And then whoever is a party in it.
That's Justice Yusuf Imoro Amadu Tanko there being vetted, so that he's a nominee for the Supreme Court. So he's being vetted at the